Welcome to the Business Growth Club podcast, and I'm here with a guest speaker, Lizzie George, who is all about loving our planet and has got loads of values and storytelling to share with you today. The topic for this episode is tips for sustainable life and business whilst living on the road with the Axe Thrower.
Yeah.
So you're probably going to wonder what that means, but Lizzie will share. Before we actually get into our talk today, Lizzie, do you want to introduce who you are and what it is that you do?
Yeah, thank you so much. I've been so looking forward to this. So I am Lizzie George and I am mum to 6 left homers and wife to the axe thrower. So we'll hear about a little bit more about him in a minute. And I'm a nanny too. I'm a Welsh nanny. So he is now 5 months old and it's absolutely fabulous. And you might have clocked that this is not a living room. This is my living room in our motorhome. And when the left homers finally left home, well, we kind of told them we're selling the house and here's some money and you can buy something much more suitable, because we had a 6-bedroom family home that we brought up our children, and we had two left and they didn't need that sort of space. So anyway, we downsized and bought a motorhome, and we live on the road touring around. All our 6 children live all around the country. They've stayed in the UK. Nobody's gone off to Australia and stuff. Stayed in the UK, and we tour around, visiting them and meeting loads and loads of lovely people, because we met in Leeds for a cuppa as well, didn't we?
We did.
And we just get to meet loads of wonderful people and tour on the road and see some sights as well. Yeah, it's fabulous.
You're a serial networker, aren't you, Lizzie? You get
Oh,
networking as well, which is
I
amazing.
love my networking because it's all about meeting people, making those connections, and finding out what people need. Maybe they've got a problem and I know the person who can solve that problem. And I need to connect you together.
Yeah.
And I love coffee and cake as well. So
On
it's,
to a winner there.
yes.
So Lizzie, when we got to meet, you actually showed me one of the products, which I still need to get my hands on, by the way. So we will sort that after this recording. One of your products, because they are sustainable, but there's so many more benefits to just the planet that we save and help, and by choosing those products.
Yeah.
So before we actually get into sustainable living as a whole, do you want to tell us a little bit more about the products that you actually sell?
Yes, yeah, fabulous. So on my journey, I decided that I wanted to look at the cleaning products under my sink. And so one of the ranges of products that I sell is Clean Living, and it's all about ditching the single-use plastic, ditching the toxic chemicals, and actually creating this gorgeous microbiome in our home, as to make it healthy for the pets that are crawling, babies crawling on the floor, pets, yeah, and just creating that healthy home. Because if you think about what you're washing your sheets in, we're sleeping, well, 6-8 hours a night. They're in contact with our skin, our clothes, and we're absorbing those chemicals. And I just love sharing that there's something we can do,
Mm.
and yeah, and it doesn't have to cost the earth and be really expensive as well.
That's very true. Like when you showed me them and I think seeing them in person makes a difference, but it was the sheets that you put in your
Oh
washing machine,
yes,
wasn't it?
I've
So if you're
just got to
watching,
pack.
you'll be able to
I've
see. If you're on the podcast, it's they're literally they look like a dry wet wipe is the best way of explaining it.
yeah, yeah,
But you just
yeah,
put it in your washing and they smell beautiful. So Lizzie, you let me touch it, didn't you? And I smelt it and oh, they
yeah,
are nice. So I'm going to
yeah,
test them out. So once I've tested them out officially, I'll have to come back and share on the podcast and say, go and get Lizzie's washing
yeah.
sheet because
Because
they're amazing.
they look like a sheet of paper, but actually
Yeah,
it's just a measured dose of detergent, and that's just gonna, when it comes in contact with the water in your machine, it just dissolves. And it's what's dissolved in your water in your machine that cleans your clothes, not all the bubbles and
yeah. So
and
the
stuff.
reason I mean, this we're going off on a tangent here, but I just wanted to share the reason I'm interested in these myself is because, well, when I spoke to you last week, Lizzie, it was that my son was having an allergic reaction to a particular brand of washing powder. Turns out it's not actually that, and he's actually allergic to heat. My other daughter's now allergic to it as well, which we discovered a week ago. Very interesting. He's had 10 years on this planet and he's been fine. But it's not just the heat, like with temperature, it can be having the heating on in your home. But we are very sensitive skin people
Yeah,
anyway, so that plays its factor, especially for me. My skin is so sensitive. So kind of products like this make a difference. But
yeah,
the biggest issue I'm having at the minute is I want my washing to smell nice, but be clean. But I'm finding that these detergents that we put in, is it detergents? I don't know, but these things we
yeah.
put in our machine, they're actually not working. The products are not breaking down properly. They're leaving marks on the clothes, staining
Yes,
them, not
yeah,
even cleaning them. So this is why I was interested in this. So if anyone's
yeah.
finding the same issue, definitely reach out to Lizzie. Her contact details will be all over this episode for you to contact her. But we want to
Mm.
get more into your story now,
Yes,
don't we?
yeah, we do.
So tell us about sustainable journey for you, that life, that business, and being on the
Yeah.
road with the axe thrower.
Yeah, yeah. So you just asked me about what sustainable living means, and I've written it down here. So it's meeting the needs of the present. So living a full life, meeting the needs of the present without compromising the health of the planet for future generations. So
Oh,
that's all about the resources that we're using, the energy that we're using, making that renewable, and not plundering the planet now, so that the future generations don't have a healthy place to live, but still actually live in our life now, because
yeah.
we don't live the life that our mums lived, 60 odd years ago. They lived a different life. So it's recognizing that, um, living a full life, but looking after it for the future generations. Yeah, and I love
I
that.
absolutely love that. That's beautiful put. It really is because it does make a difference, doesn't it? And I think these days we are starting to see the impact on the way we have treated the planet. And I'm quite big on this stuff because my grandma obviously has lived through, she's not old actually, she's in her 70s, but she's lived through a lot and seen how things have evolved and probably effects of global warming. And
Yeah.
she's always been big on recycling, and I've just never forgot that. So when I met my husband, he didn't recycle, but then a few weeks of being in a relationship with me, he was literally filling his green bin, and his housemate who we lived with at the time was doing it as well.
Yeah.
Because I was like, "Whoa, what are you doing? You can't put that plastic. That can be recycled. Put it in the green bin." And actually, before I knew it, he was having bags and bags of plastic bottles and cartons, and he knew
Yeah.
what he could recycle, and it was all being reused. Because why would we
Yeah.
want to put it in landfill when we can renew that and reuse it? So
Yeah.
that was like interesting for me because I grew up seeing that and it made a difference. So your
Yeah.
journey is really interesting, isn't it? Because you live a sustainable life, but whilst on the road, which really
Mm.
interests me because it's just
Yeah.
so different. I love anything different
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
out of the ordinary. So when you tell us a bit about that and what that looks like for you as
Yeah,
well.
what that looks like for me. And I want to add that it's sustainable-ish because I
Ish.
don't live, yeah, the ish is
Yeah.
really important because I don't live a perfect zero waste life, far
Mm.
from it, because I shop in my local supermarket, wherever that happens to be, and you're confined with what they're selling. A lot of the
Yeah.
fruit and veg comes in soft plastic. So I don't live a perfect zero waste life at all, but I do try and make it as ish as possible. So although we do travel around, and this is a diesel vehicle, because they don't make electric motorhomes this big at all. So and she's an old girl, she's an old girl, and so we fill up with diesel, and that's got a carbon footprint. But what we try and do is when we rock up to a campsite, we don't move the motorhome.
Yeah.
So we've got a big garage at the back, and out comes a couple of electric bikes. I've got an electric tricycle, and the axe thrower, he's got his bike as well, and that's what we'll use when we're rocked up somewhere. So we went to Spain for 3 months, and We didn't move the motorhome at all when we got there, and we were walking, bus, bike, and train as well. And that's
Yeah.
how we got about, because we wanted to go sightseeing, and we wanted to go to Madrid, and that was 4 hours away. And actually, it was cheaper to fly to Madrid than it was to go on the train. Um, but I just love sitting there on the train, watching the world go by. And actually that was the most sustainable way of traveling, and reducing my carbon footprint whilst being a tourist and visiting these places. Yeah.
I love that.
Um,
And it's really interesting that you say sustainable-ish because I have a friend, a previous client of mine, who was big on sustainability, but
mm,
she wasn't 100% either. But what she did was, and I've started to do this myself.
mm,
So do you know when you go to the supermarket and your vegetables in particular and your fruit, they come in plastic packaging, don't they?
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I've been washing mine out and I've been saving them because they're
yeah.
actually really, really good for like planting stuff in or using them in greenhouses and things like that. So we've got quite a
Mm,
collection building now. I
yeah,
mean, we can't fill them fast enough the amount of my
mm,
kids eat strawberries.
yeah,
And I don't think a lot of these plastics can be recycled. They are always supermarkets are changing and evolving, but yeah,
mm,
they're not very recyclable. So I wash them out and I save them.
yeah,
So they're not
yeah,
going to landfill. I'm actually reusing
yeah,
them,
yeah.
which is really cool. So
a,
yeah,
a lot of them are coming in the cardboard packaging now, which is
they
helpful.
are.
And the
Yeah,
soft plastic can be like the wrapping can be
yeah.
recycled in some of the bins. But when we were in Spain, the same supermarkets that we have here um, uh, had a whole fruit and veg without plastic. So
Oh wow.
they can do it.
But we can.
Why can't we? And it's all about moving that quantity and the logistics.
Yeah.
Um, and actually, when we're moving food, that's when the carbon footprint is. And then they package it because it's easier to move packaged. Whereas when we were in Spain, we were in an area that was growing cauliflowers and all that sort of local stuff, and it was coming off the fields and into the supermarkets and into the market. They had this huge Sunday market with all fresh fruits, and strawberries were in season in January in Spain. Um, and yeah, yeah, that was just really lovely.
Interesting, isn't it? How different it can be.
Yeah,
So if
yeah,
you were if someone came to you and said, "Look, I'm wanting to start a journey of
yeah,
sustainability," where would you recommend someone gets starting if they do
yeah,
care about the planet and loving the planet more and looking after it? Where
yeah.
would you say to begin?
I always start under the sink, because
Yeah.
it's that cupboard. You open it and it's wall to wall, single-use plastic bottles. There's toxic chemicals. There's one bottle for one purpose.
Mm,
Whereas clean living is very much about multi-purpose. You can have one bottle. Take the
yeah.
kitchen cleaner. The kitchen cleaner is brilliant on grease, but you can also use it on grease spots on your clothes as well. So
Ah,
it's about multi-purpose. It's about having 7, 9 core products, but they're cleaning so much more. And so I say start under the sink. Look at your plastic bottles, read the ingredients on your chemicals. And that's a brilliant way to start, because refilling is so much better
yeah.
than recycling. If you can have that plastic bottle and you can refill it over and over and over and over and over, that is so much better than sending that. Because I was looking at David Attenborough, he just inspired me to get started, telling us what was happening to the plastic that we thought was being recycled. Um, you know, and it's not going where we think it's going.
And it takes a lot of energy to actually, I know recycling is great, but it takes a lot of
Yeah,
energy to actually recycle it as
yes,
well, doesn't it? If we can
it
even reduce
does.
that down. Yeah.
Exactly. And plastic per se is not the baddie. It's what we're doing with it. It's the
Yeah.
volume that we're creating, because it's just brilliant for carrying liquids. It's light, it doesn't leak as long as you know, put the lid on properly. And it's just brilliant as long as we keep refilling it. And there are so many refill shops now, and then we sell the sachet so that you can refill your aluminium bottles. And yeah, and so I say start under the sink, and then look at, because for me, I started off with the plastic situation, and that's then when I added more areas on my sustainable journey. So then I looked in the bathroom, oh, all those shampoo bottles, shower gels and personal care stuff. How can we replace those then with either refilling them or with a totally plastic free option like bars? We can now get shampoo bars. We can yeah, and our personal care can be refilled as well. I've now got a bar for my face, which is different from the bar that's got a load of tea tree in for my, you know, for my hair and my body. I bought a two-in-one soap bar just to give it a go. And that came, actually, it didn't have any packaging. Some has cardboard packaging, so you can recycle that. But see what works for you when your hair type and your skin. But yeah, refill and then try and go as plastic free as you can. And there's even these powders now for toothpaste, so you don't have to have it coming out of a tube. But the other thing with that I found on my journey was the Kicks Count project. And that's all about raising awareness for stillbirth. But what they do is they have a group of women and hubs all around the country, and they collect hard to recycle plastic. So your toothpaste tubes, crisp packets before the soft plastic came in, all this hard to recycle plastic, and they raise money from that for, and then use that to raise awareness for stillbirth charity. So so if you do like toothpaste because you like a particular brand and stuff, and it comes in a plastic tube, then there are ways that you can dispose of it that would actually benefit a charity. So I quite like that. There's a win-win, isn't there?
Yeah,
But
there
I'm
is.
quite liking my powdered toothpaste, so that's all right. But you know, it doesn't work for kids, does it? Because that'll go everywhere and everything. But you know, you need to
Yeah,
contain it with them, don't you, in a tube? But
oh, even the tubes don't work in my house, I can tell you. Uh, that's interesting, isn't it? I can imagine as well, if you take away all these plastic bottles, it saves so much space. Like, I don't know about anyone else, but under my sink is chaos, and I get
yeah,
fed up of organising it. So
yeah,
that will make a massive difference.
yeah.
And like on the road, while you're that probably could be quite a challenge for people who, I've got a few people in my world that love traveling, and I think trying to be sustainable while being on the go could be quite
Mm.
hard to navigate. Is there any
Mm.
tips you've got for that? On the road living and making it a sustainable journey at the same time, or sustainable-ish?
Yeah. So I then look at other areas of my life. So the food that we're eating, but just buying local and buying in season food makes an awful lot of difference. And then if you can reduce the meat as well, and have more veggie days, because the carbon footprint of meat is quite huge. Um, and then I look at other areas as well. See, money. Who knew money could be green apart from the color of it? Because who we bank with has a
Yeah.
huge impact. So the 5 biggest banks in the country all invest their money in fossil fuels, arms, and industries that don't love our planet. And if we can switch our money into an ethical bank, I won't name any, but I do have a sheet, and I can share, um, who then actually invest in renewable energy. They don't invest in arms, and they invest in businesses then that are doing the planet good. All these companies now that are innovatively developing. I just met a guy this last week who collects plastic off the beaches, because I grew up on the Gower in off Swansea on the Mumbles. And I recognized the beach, and I thought, I was swimming on that beach like 40 odd years ago. And he collects the plastic, and now he makes plant pots and
Oh
Christmas
wow.
tree decorations. And they're going to be making garden furniture. So although that's not ideal in that, that plastic shouldn't be getting into our oceans and onto the beach in the first place, and that's a whole different problem. But he is doing something good
Yeah.
with the waste and getting it off the beaches, and then making sure that it doesn't harm more aquatic life. And what it happens to the plastic is it breaks down even more. So then you get microplastics. They get into the fish. People eat the fish, and we're digesting microplastics.
Yeah.
And the more we can stop plastic getting into our waterways and the better. And the only way to do that is kind of not make it in the first place. You
Yeah.
use something else. But yeah, so that was a fabby blast from my past.
Oh wow, that's amazing that. And we went to the beach at the weekend. Well, went to 3 beaches at the weekend. But on the first one we went to, my son came running out saying, oh, Mum, what? Found this in the water. That should not be in the water. And it was just like,
Mm,
I think it was what was from, like a Coca-Cola bottle or something, and the plastic had gone quite white that was wrapped around the bottle, but
mm,
there was nothing on it.
mm,
But it looked something like that, I'm assuming. It could be anything. But it was plastic, and
yeah,
it was like, "There's this
yeah,
rubbish in the sea, and it shouldn't be in the sea. Where's the bin?" And I'm like, "Well, actually," and we were near the top. I'm like, "There's no bins here." So we chose a bucket that we could put the stuff in. So he
yeah,
was like, at 10 years old, he was like, "Mum, this shouldn't be on the beach. It's rubbish. It shouldn't be in the
yeah,
bin." So I'm
yeah,
like so proud of him for that. But it does show that like we I think a lot of us when we do go to a beach, there is some rubbish there, unfortunately, that's being
yeah,
done, and often it's plastic or glass as well.
yeah. And waste from the fishing industry as well. Lots of nets and things that have been chucked overboard from boats.
Yeah,
Um, and the odd crisp packet and everything like that. But thinking about digital waste as well, because that has a huge carbon footprint. And if we can reduce that, if you think about when we use the cloud and we've got all these documents stored up that we never look at, and all those photographs,
mm,
to store those on a server somewhere, it takes energy to run that server, but it also takes energy to keep that server cool. And so if we can reduce that, then we can reduce our carbon footprint. I'm not saying don't take photographs, but I'm saying delete the ones that you don't want. Don't keep anything that you don't love.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, and just thinking about the carbon footprint of my laptop now, you know, just by looking after the hard drive, I can keep it in tip-top condition and keep it going longer.
Yeah.
Um, just by deleting those programs and files that I will never look at again.
Do you know this
Yeah,
this this is like something I can get on board with because it just
yeah,
means regularly organizing them, which I
yes,
actually I do
yeah,
spend time doing that myself.
yeah,
I go through like my phone and the photos on there, documents on
mm,
my laptop, wipe them
mm,
completely. I mean, I do use cloud storage, and I've recently spent a lot of time going through my Google Drive and
yes, yeah,
getting through stuff that I don't need anymore, organizing it,
yeah,
and it's freed up like over
yeah,
50% on my
yeah,
storage, which has saved me
yeah,
money because I would have had to
yes,
upgrade,
yeah,
has saved energy, of course. So that's,
yeah,
and it just makes me
yeah.
feel better to know where everything is.
Yeah.
So there's
And
massive benefits.
emails as well.
Mm,
Unsubscribe from things that you never open and you don't are not useful to you. Just
yeah,
unsubscribe, because even in the sending of it, that needs energy to send it to you. And if you're
yeah.
not going to open it and you're not going to benefit from it, unsubscribe. Yeah.
Definitely. And as a business as well, if someone unsubscribes from your email list, it's doing you and them a favor. It's a really good thing. I have something in place on mine where, which I guess this will help with the sustainability.
Mm,
Whereas if someone's not opened an email after 90 days, it will auto remove them from my list. So at least they're
uh,
not going to then continue to get
yeah.
emails. So that'll be really good because if they don't read them anyway, they won't notice that I've disappeared for
Yeah.
them. And obviously it saves that energy. I love that. There's tips that
Yeah.
I've not even thought about that you've really brought into this discussion.
Yeah, and it's just about being organized, isn't it?
Mm,
Which is your bag. It's kind
yeah,
of not my bag, but it's your bag. Yeah, yeah.
it does
It's
make a
amazing
difference.
where
I
these little.
absolutely,
It's about simple swaps. What simple swaps can we make to our lifestyle to make it more sustainable? Because not everybody wants to ditch the car and get a tricycle. It suited us at the. I had a friend who she had one of those Dutch bikes and with the pods in the front for her children. And she would cycle them to primary school, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's so hard. I can't do that. But now I am loving it, and I've embraced it, and I get so much joy from riding my tricycle that it's an easy swap for me to make now. And I don't have any choice now because I don't have a car. But hey ho, because we sold that to a family who needed that big 7-seater car, and we don't need it anymore. So
I love that.
mm,
Makes such a difference. And I just love how your positive approach with it all as well and the impact and bigger difference it makes. And if more of us do that,
mm,
we can make that impact together. And I'm big on
we
impact
can.
all around in whatever your mission is. I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Because if we think, you know, if a million women just made that small swap, what of an impact we could make rather than one woman trying to live the most perfect zero waste, eco-friendly life possible. If a million women did a little bit,
Yeah,
that's got to be better for our planet. Yeah.
absolutely has. Thank you so much for sharing those. Do you share regular tips like this on social media? Are you sharing things like this that we can do? And obviously, you've got your
Yeah.
amazing products which can help
Yes.
even more as well. If we want to
Yeah.
check those out, where can we come and find you?
Yeah, so I run a community. It's called Love Our Planet with Lizzie. It's a Facebook group, and I share my tips and my journey with the Axe Thrower because we've just done Wales to Whitby on a bit of a tour, visiting mums in business networking groups, and we've just done a bit of a tour on that. And I share about my journey as well, what we get up to, and the axe throwing venues that we try out too. Yeah, because we're
I
both
love that.
love our axe throwing.
I love that. It's so unique. And so my final question that I ask all of my guests is,
Okay.
this is the one you're nervous about, you're
Yeah.
fine, is what would be your top tip for being organized within your business?
For being organized with my business, I must admit I am not the most organized. I do like my notebook, so everything goes in my notebook. But I think for me, it is, and I've touched on it earlier. It's organizing those emails, organizing those
Mm,
digital files. I'm an accountant for a charity in my two days a week day job, and I've made that a paperless accounts department, and we all work virtually. We don't print out paper. We don't, yeah. So we're not printing things that we don't need. We only
mm.
keep a digital file of the things that we want to keep, but we've got to keep it for tax purposes anyway. But yeah. So paperless for me. Yeah, and
Do you know what? I'm just gonna
reduce
add
that
on.
digital waste.
Yeah, and I'm gonna add on to that because I've been self-employed for 11 years. Geez, that went fast. But at first, I didn't really understand like using online storage. So I used to sit
Mm,
every month and print all of my invoices, all of my sales,
mm,
all of that because anyone needed it on record just in case. I think that was 11
mm.
years. Has anyone need to see them? Well, actually, not until yesterday, funny enough, but it wasn't a whole 7 years worth as we are required to keep on record. It was just for this month. So and I've actually still got them because I've still got them because you have to keep 7 years. But in the last 3 years, I transferred to digital and it's made it so much better. Saved ink, saved a lot of time. So every time a payment goes
Yes.
out or a payment comes in, I screenshot it or download that invoice and I put it into the relevant folder so I
Yeah.
can find it. And then what I've done just recently is I've gone back in there and gone, right, don't need that year anymore, don't need that year anymore, and just
Yeah.
deleted
Yeah.
them. You might
Delete.
want some
Yeah.
stats for something that you might want to look back over. So maybe keep a very simple format of that just in case you need that. But yeah, I got rid of it and it felt so good. Because I've moved on
Yeah.
from then as well. But I'm big on, as you know, organisation. And with
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
I recommend I have in my diary every month a set time where I will do my bookkeeping and upload those.
Mm.
And regularly I've made a note to declutter my phone, photos and files, declutter my emails,
Mm.
just to keep it nice and
Yeah.
organized. But obviously, as we
Yeah.
now know, it has an impact on being sustainable as well and on
It
our
is.
planet.
And just being able to find things as well, it must make such a difference when you haven't
Yes.
got thousands of things to look through and things are in folders, so
Yeah.
that you can. So I've started doing that on my phone with my photographs, and I've got a photograph of the grandson. So he's got his own photograph, and I had a folder for my dog. So I've got a few photographs of her because she's no longer with us. But just being able to find things, when you want them, and
Yeah.
to be more
Yeah.
organized, and HMRC is catching up now. 10 years ago, everything had to be printed in triplicate, and your inside leg measurement added as well, but they're digital now, and you can file your tax return digitally and everything, so things are dragging on into the next century. But if we can then just delete those old stuffs and things that don't serve us, documents that we just never look at and don't
Mm.
read, that they can go, if we don't need them, because you can always get them again, can't you?
That's so
Ask
true.
somebody, can I have that again? Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your tips with us today. It's been a pleasure to have you. So
Thank you so much.
for those listeners out there, if you want to go and learn how you can protect our planet even more, find sustainable products, then definitely go and connect with Lizzie, and I'm sure she will help you out.
Oh, I love it. And I love an online cuppa as well. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, so go speak to Lizzie for an
obviously.
online cuppa. Thank you so much, Lizzie.
Thank you.